Decoded.
Hey, bookworms, and welcome back to Book Decoded, where we like to, break down insightful reads and help you unlock those aha moments. Have you ever had that feeling where someone asks you, like, what do you want? And you just totally blank. It's like you're lost in a fog.
I know exactly what you mean.
Right. Well, that's what we're diving into today with this book, The Magic of Knowing What You Want by Tracey Gee.
That sounds pretty relevant to, like, everyone.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's that feeling we all have.
It is.
Like, you should want things, but it's all just foggy.
Tracey actually calls it desire fog.
Desire fog. I love that. And, what's even more interesting is that the book actually came out of a pretty relatable experience that Tracey had.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. She had applied for this VP position, and she was super excited about it. She felt like it was a great fit.
Okay.
And then crickets. Nothing. No interview, no feedback.
Ouch.
Right. Total radio silence.
I can see how that would make you kind of question what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It would make anyone question their path.
Yeah.
But instead of letting that disappointment, get to her,
Mm-hmm.
she decided to do something pretty radical.
Okay. What's that?
A 40-day experiment. So for 40 days straight, she committed to doing at least one thing each day just because she wanted to.
Okay.
No shoulds.
Right.
Pure desire-driven action.
I like it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm dying to know what kind of things she was doing during these 40 days.
Oh, there are so many great stories.
Was it like spa days, impromptu dance parties? Like, tell me everything.
There's one story that I think really captures, like, the essence of the experiment in the book.
Okay.
So on one of these desire days, Tracey almost talked herself out of taking her dog for a run at the beach.
Oh,
It was a cloudy day, kind of dreary,
okay.
but she went anyway.
I'm sensing this is where the magic happens.
You bet. As she's running, she spots two dolphins swimming in an inlet.
No way.
Yeah, near the marina, and they were so close to shore,
Wow.
like 15 feet away.
That's incredible.
She even mentions that she was completely alone on the beach at the time, so it was like this really special private encounter with her dog and these dolphins. Talk about a sign from the universe, right?
Wow. It really drives home the point that even when things feel uncertain, following our desires, no matter how small, can lead to these unexpectedly beautiful moments.
Totally.
It's like those dolphins were like a reward for honoring her desire to go to the beach.
Yeah,
Even when it wasn't the perfect day.
exactly. And for Tracey, that was like a turning point. That whole experience, the 40-day experiment.
Yeah.
It really made her realize the power of attuning into her desires and the impact it had on her relationship with herself.
I see.
She calls it befriending your desires.
Befriending your desires. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so much more inviting than the way most of us, I think, approach our desires.
Right.
With judgment,
Oh, yeah.
criticism.
Or fear even.
Right. Like we're almost afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
She has this great analogy in the book where she compares it to how we treat a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Like imagine constantly criticizing and belittling a friend.
Right.
That's how a lot of us treat our desires.
It is.
We judge them, we silence them.
We tell ourselves they're not important.
Yeah. But what Tracey argues is that our desires are actually like a compass,
Interesting.
pointing us towards a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment.
Okay. That's where things get really interesting.
It's like we think of purpose and desire as these two separate things.
Right.
Purpose is all serious and responsible.
Yeah.
And desire is like this frivolous thing that we should just ignore.
Exactly. But Tracey actually challenges that whole idea.
Really?
Yeah, she says that separating purpose from desire is a big mistake, and that actually our desires can lead us towards our purpose.
So it's not about like denying our desires
Right.
to pursue some, big grand purpose. It's more about like listening to those desires
Mm-hmm.
and seeing where they might guide us.
Exactly. It reminds me of this quote by Parker Palmer.
Okay.
He says, "Before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am."
That's beautiful.
It is.
It's like getting to know yourself better.
Right.
Understanding what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And then letting those desires kind of be your guide.
Totally. And Tracey actually gives us a framework to help us do that.
Okay, cool.
She calls it the authentic alignment pathway. It's a 4-stage process,
Mhm.
and it all starts with something called calibration.
Calibration. What is that?
Well, it basically comes down to this question. What makes you come alive?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right. It's a big one.
It is. Where do we even begin to answer that?
Well, Tracey says to think about our peak experiences.
Peak experiences.
Okay.
So those moments in our lives where we felt truly like energized and joyful
Mm-hmm.
and completely in flow.
So like giving a presentation that really lands,
Okay.
or finishing a creative project, or even just having like a deep conversation with a friend.
I see.
It's about identifying those times when you felt the most alive.
So looking for those moments that light us up,
Yes.
those experiences that make us feel really engaged and energized.
Exactly. But it's also important to look at the flip side,
Okay.
what she calls contrast experiences.
Contrast experiences.
Yeah, so those are the times when you felt drained or frustrated
Yeah.
or just plain blah.
Right, because those contrast experiences can be just as important
They are.
as the peak ones.
They are. They show us what we don't want, what to avoid if we're trying to create a life that feels aligned.
Exactly. So by looking at both our peak and contrast experiences, we're essentially like calibrating our inner compass,
Exactly.
getting a clearer sense of what really resonates with us and what drains our energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've identified those. We're starting to understand what makes us tick. What's next?
Okay, so once we've kind of calibrated that inner compass,
Yeah,
it's time to move on to the next stage,
Okay.
which is expansion.
expansion.
This is all about challenging those limitations that might be holding us back and embracing a mindset of abundance.
That sounds nice.
It is, right?
But what does it actually mean, like, in the context of this?
Well, it's about, recognizing that we often place limitations on ourselves,
Okay.
limitations around time or money, beliefs, even our own imagination.
So it's like when we tell ourselves, I'm too old to start a new career.
Exactly.
Or I don't have enough money to travel the world.
That's that limitation mindset.
Got it.
We tell ourselves these stories and they keep us stuck, but they're often not even true.
Right.
They're just beliefs that we've picked up along the way.
And the abundance mindset is about challenging those beliefs.
Exactly.
Seeing that there are more possibilities
More opportunity.
than we might realize.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. But that requires like a lot of honesty about what we actually want.
It does.
Right. Because sometimes it can feel scary to even admit those desires to ourselves, let alone to other people.
Right, because it opens us up to judgment.
Yeah.
And disappointment.
For sure. But Tracey argues that that radical honesty
Yeah.
is crucial
It is.
for living a fulfilling life.
Yeah, and she actually shares this example in the book.
Okay.
From her own life. So after that job rejection,
Yeah.
she found this old planner
Okay.
where she had written down all these desires for different time frames,
Right.
like 3 months a year, 3 years lifetime. And looking back, some of them seemed almost prophetic.
Really?
Yeah, like she had written that she wanted to have an approved book proposal
Oh.
within a year,
And she did.
even though she had no idea what she wanted to write about at the time.
Wow.
And guess what? She ended up writing this book.
That's amazing. The power of putting it out there.
Right.
It's a reminder that sometimes the path unfolds in ways we just don't expect.
We can't predict it.
Exactly.
But it all starts with that honesty about what we truly want.
Okay, so we've calibrated our compass. We're embracing abundance.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next step?
The next step is experimentation. Stage 3.
Okay.
This is all about taking action, turning curiosity into clarity by actually trying things out.
Because I feel like sometimes we get stuck in our heads,
We do.
overthinking everything,
Yeah.
never actually taking the leap.
It's so true. Tracey actually calls this the clarity paradox.
The clarity paradox. I like that.
Yeah, we think we need all this information,
Mm.
all this certainty before we can act.
Right.
But often it's the action itself that leads to the clarity.
So it's less about having a perfect plan
Right.
and more about taking those small steps and adjusting along the way.
Exactly. And Tracey emphasizes that experiments don't have to be these huge, life-altering things.
Right.
They can be small, like having a conversation with someone in a field that interests you, taking a class, or even just reading a book on a topic you're curious about.
Just following those sparks of curiosity,
Exactly.
seeing where they lead.
Yeah, and she also talks about choosing experiments with the right level of risk.
Right.
Start small,
Mm-hmm.
see what you learn, and then gradually increase the risk as you get more clarity and confidence.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've experimented, we've gathered our data,
Yeah.
we've learned from those experiences.
Mm.
What's the final stage?
The final stage is integration.
Integration.
This is where we take all those insights that we've gotten from our experiment, weave them into our lives. It's about interpreting those outcomes, making decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately taking ownership of our desires.
So it's like where it all comes together.
Yeah,
We start to see the bigger picture
exactly.
and how to create a life that reflects that.
And it's not always easy.
Right.
Because outcomes, they're not always self-interpreting.
That's true.
Sometimes we might misinterpret those results.
Yeah.
Or we might judge ourselves too harshly.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that idea of success or failure
Right.
and forget that every experience has something to teach us.
Every experience, even the challenging ones.
Right.
So Tracey actually outlines these 5 invitations that
Yeah.
outcomes might present.
Invitations. I like that. What are they?
Okay, so there's celebration.
Okay.
Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Course correction,
Okay.
release,
Mm-hmm.
and grieve.
Wow. Okay, so break those down for me.
Okay, so
Yeah.
celebration, that's about acknowledging our wins,
Yeah,
big and small.
love that.
Keep going is a reminder that sometimes achieving those desires takes time.
It does.
Takes patience,
Yeah.
resilience, for sure. Course correction is about learning from those setbacks
Yeah,
and adjusting our approach.
makes sense.
Release is about recognizing when a desire might no longer be serving us
Okay.
and being willing to let it go.
So it's about evolving, okay, and grieve.
Grieve is about acknowledging the pain
Mm-hmm.
of those desires that might not come to fruition
Yeah.
and allowing ourselves to feel those difficult emotions.
It's important to feel all of it.
It is, so we can move through them.
That's powerful. Those last two are really important reminders, I think,
They are.
that it's not always an easy journey.
It's not.
Sometimes it requires us to let go
Yeah.
of old dreams.
Embrace new possibilities.
Right. And allow ourselves to feel the full spectrum of our emotions.
Exactly.
So this authentic alignment pathway, it's such a valuable framework.
It is.
It's comprehensive, practical, and really inspiring.
And the magic of knowing what you want is full of even more insight, stories, and tips to help you on your own journey.
Awesome.
It's a reminder that we all have those desires.
We do.
And they're not only valid, but they're also essential for living a life that feels aligned.
So to all of our listeners out there, remember Tracey's words. When you get to the end of your life, only you can judge whether you lived as your true self.
Powerful.
So befriend your desires.
Yeah.
Embrace the journey.
Trust the magic.
And trust the magic that unfolds when you start living a life that is true to you.
I love that.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Book Decoded.
It was fun.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of insightful reads.